Okay, so Idris Elba recently got onto Instagram and he said that he wants everyone on the platform to be verified.
He's 60 though.
Yeah, he's 60.
Okay.
He wants everyone to be verified because he thinks it's weird that you can go on social media, talk a bunch of shit, or like talk to people and they don't know who you are. And so he
I see what
he
he's saying.
says it's similar
Like
to
so there's no like troll accounts?
no troll accounts, and I also think it's just like so you know who you're talking to. Like this is an actual person, it's not like you're lying from a burner account.
The process of verification requires them to prove their identity so everyone knows who is speaking. Social media companies should make this mandatory. I get what he's saying. Currently, social media is boarding a plane not having to show ID. That would never happen. Well, if cowards are being supported by a vial of privacy and secrecy, then social media is not a safe place. So he just wants it to be more like
It'd make it
open.
a nicer place, maybe, or something.
If
I don't
cowards
like
want
any
to
kind of
sprout
regulation
racial,
when it comes to the internet,
say
though. That's what
your
worries
name,
me.
not your username. So he wants people to go by like official name.
Yeah, or you could just look
Meatball
up
has
like,
the Delta.
the Delta.
What's happening?
Smoking too much.
That will also.
There you
give
go,
the
kids.
Delta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I get what
I
Idris
don't
is
know how I
saying.
feel about
I
it.
get what he's saying.
Well, he's also from the
'Cause people are
UK. They don't
hiding-
have freedom of speech over there, right?
Well, they do, but
In the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have freedom of speech.
Do they?
The UK?
I heard that there's like a
not
specific
Iran, Kat.
like if you say certain, you can't say certain things. Like there was
Canada,
that
you
Tom
can't.
Daly situation where someone said that his dad would be disappointed he didn't like win gold or some shit and he was arrested. It was like
No,
a
no,
random
you
tweet
don't
They
get
have
that
freedom of
happened
speech
years
over
ago.
there.
you have free speech in the UK.
Yeah, for sure.
Canada has a hate speech law.
There we go. That's what I'm thinking. Like, don't they have a
that's
hate
what,
speech
That's
law?
what Jordan Peterson got famous for fighting against, and they passed it. In some ways, it's compelled speech, and I'm not sure. I think that's been challenged.
But Idris
I
is on the
know-
right path, though. He's saying like these trolls hide behind these weird pseudonyms and can
Yeah.
just spew out vile shit. But if it was under their real legal name, you could find out who they are. Then I doubt they're gonna be hide behind this like fake avatar account.
Yeah.
I'm down with that. Too.
I'm down with it.
Yeah.
Because I think Tinder has something like that where you have your account verified if you put in your ID to show like, oh, this is actually who they say they are, and then their accounts that just
I get what
aren't
he's doing.
verified.
Yeah.
But then again, is that a violation of your privacy just to speak your mind and to have your own account? That's the other question.
Yeah, but is it
Raises
but is it
privacy
okay to hide behind whatever booger123_ and just say racial shit?
No, but-
because would you say that same racist shit if it was your actual account?
Absolutely not. But that's only one case. The real debate is should you be forced to disclose your identity when you just want to interact on social media and maybe you just want to remain anonymous, which is your right as a human being too.
Yeah, but that's the exception, isn't it? I think
Not so much.
I disagree. I think what he's saying is like these people spewing this shit wouldn't do it if they had to.
I understand. But
consequences.
I understand. But what if I said to you, you're not allowed to be anonymous? You'd be like, wait a minute.
I wouldn't. I'd be like, yeah, cool, because I'm not anonymous.
Well-
And I would never get behind something and say some shit I wouldn't say.
So you want to give a central power the ability to say you have to say who you are?
Yeah,
like,
that's fine.
I have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with
I
it.
think it's fine to be anonymous.
I think it would
'cause
clean. I think it would clean up the hate on social media.
Okay, so then how do you feel about hate speech? Would you outlaw it?
Yes, it shouldn't be on the platform.
You
Hate
would
speech.
outlaw hate speech.
Yes, shouldn't be on the platforms.
Okay, but what about if you? So you would not allow people to say something racist in general?
Not if I own Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube. No.
Okay. They are allowed. You are allowed now on Twitter and Facebook as long as it's not directed at someone specifically, right? Because that falls under your First Amendment right.
Sure.
I happen to believe in the First Amendment, which is you're allowed to say anything you want. The one thing there are exceptions like screaming fire in a thing or advocating violence directly towards somebody, saying go kill that guy. That would be you'd be in trouble for that.
Sure.
But overall, protecting free speech is very important in general, right? And I think
To a certain extent.
to every extent to me, but I mean, yes.
I don't think so.
There are,
I think
like,
when kids are committing suicide, getting bullied on social media, there has to be some recourse or action. We can't just say, "Well, it's freedom of speech. It's okay that this
well,
kid's
there are
getting bullied."
harassment laws. There are harassment laws, right? So there are, but you have to be very careful about, I think when you say, well, you're not allowed to be anonymous. So I can't write a book that's anonymous. I can't say something that's anonymous because sometimes you want to just express yourself under a pseudonym. Sometimes you have a pen name, which authors have done. So it's a slippery slope, is what I'm trying to say, and it's a debate that I think has been had and thought about pretty thoroughly.
You think? I don't think so. On
Oh,
social
yeah.
media,
Oh, my-
no.
in the
Not on
United
social
States?
media. Not on social media.
It falls into the same
banned Trump
category, though.
from having a
Well, that was so that's the other
they say you're
question.
spreading misinformation.
Well, there you go. So
but then they came out and said basically we just didn't want him to win the election. We don't want him to be able to contact his followers.
Well, but I understand. So Facebook, let's just take Facebook, let's take Twitter, let's take
Instagram, YouTube.
Instagram. No, let's take YouTube. Let's take YouTube, let's take Facebook, let's say Twitter. If you have a group of people spreading, like they've got a sophisticated information network, and they start saying something like this particular group of people, let's say Koreans or Chinese people in this particular neighborhood, are responsible for X, Y, and Z. And it's a lie. And we've seen this in other countries. And then you get a mob of people that, with their pitchforks, come into that neighborhood and start wreaking damage.
Sure.
Or let's just talk about what's going on now. Say what you will about vaccines, but vaccines do have an effect. They have had a positive effect on, I'm going to get shit for this, but on the fact that COVID is no longer as much a threat. Old people take it, they can move about and they won't die because they're immune to COVID. If you look at the 2 billion plus people who've had it and you look at the actual data, the real data from all over the world, that bears out. That is a fact. When you have people who are actively spreading misinformation about a vaccine, like, for example, it makes women infertile, which is not true. Mm-hmm. There's just no science to that. But there are strong networks that are saying that, and people are buying into it, so people aren't getting the vaccine. As a platform, you kind of have a duty to tackle that. You have a duty to kind of go, I might get sued. This is misinformation, and it's actually causing the economy to stay closed longer.
But is it not freedom of speech? Back to your point?
That would be, this is the biggest challenge we face. Misinformation and deliberate misinformation, lying on a platform when you own it privately, you might be responsible for that. So you kind of have to limit free speech in that sense. That's what I'm saying.
But then you open up the floodgates because then where do you stop
It's a big
that?
fucking problem. I don't have the answer. I am a big advocate of free speech in the First Amendment, 100%. And the way to deal with free speech is more free speech. But we are dealing with a precedent we've never had to deal with it before, right?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's been looked at or studied that much.
Well, it's new. I mean, I'm saying to your point.
That was my point.
Yeah,
that was my original point.
To your point. So what do you do? Because you get so much shit when you censor people's
I don't think you
accounts.
allow hate speech or misinformation. That's their responsibility.
How do you define hate speech? Here's the problem. Now, because somebody's defining that. So the problem with hate speech is if I say a man is a man and a woman is a woman, or if I say biological men shouldn't be in women's sports, let me tell you something. That's considered hate speech on a lot of platforms. Why? Because a very active minority, tiny group of people that are very active and loud, are bullying and making it very dangerous for you to say otherwise because you will lose your job. Now we got a problem. You understand?
Slippery slope.
It is. And we know that historically it's a slippery slope because somebody has to delineate and designate and define what hate speech is. And that's why every time it hits the Supreme Court, it's shot down because you're like, who the fuck is saying this is hate speech? Because you can start saying anything. And this agenda with this trans agenda thing, there are people in that group who are just not reasonable about certain things. Do you think biological men should be allowed to compete in women's fighting, for example? I mean, or do you think a man who had no estrogen replacement? Let's just take an extreme example, and they have long hair or whatever, and they say, "I want to sprint in the women's division of the Olympics."
I think they need to open up more divisions for more transgender.
There you go. That's fine. Now hold on.
They should be allowed to compete.
You could get sanctioned for saying that sometimes in certain platforms. You really could. You'd be in some trouble for saying that. You'd get blowback. And if you work for certain organizations, they would tell you you have to apologize for what you just said.
For sure.
Right? And that's why protecting freedom of speech is so fucking important. It's just a slippery slope, man. It's fucking. See, we get into this, and all of a sudden you realize how thick it is. It's just like I don't envy YouTube and Twitter. I don't envy that, having to deal with that. Fuck that.